And welcome back. It is Frankie Boyer. This is Biz Talk Radio, FrankieBoyer.com. And by the way, I have to tell you that I rewatched the piece that was done on, I believe it was one of the news stories, one of the news magazine television shows. I can't remember. I believe it was 60 Minutes on Flint and its lead issue in the pipes and the problems that one pediatrician, it may have been one of the morning shows, I don't know, but one of the shows did a segment where one of the doctors, a pediatrician, saw this incredible increase in learning disabilities and issues affecting lead in children. The two do not mix in any way, shape, or form. Joining us today is Kate Kirkwood, who knows that only too well because her specialty is lead paint regulations, and she's with us today. You know, one would never have thought how devastating lead paint is and lead in general, but you're saying that over 1 million children still in the U.S. today still are affected by lead.
Absolutely, Frankie. Good morning. Yes, we don't even know the extent of the problem because sadly in much of the country we don't regulate testing. Lead testing for children is not a regular part of pediatric checkups in most of the United States. So, for example, in one state where I do quite a lot of work in New Hampshire, only about 15% of the children are even tested. And we know within that number that about 1,000 kids a year just in that little state are poisoned. But we don't know about the rest of them. So the biggest piece of awareness advice that I have for folks is if you have children under 6, please get them tested because it's not automatic.
It's not. Okay. You're saying that even new homes today, even new builds today, even renovations today, there's still lead. And how is that possible? And tell us where this lead is coming from.
Absolutely. So the regulations are written for houses built before 1978. They ask that you should get a house tested if it's built before 1978 and you're going to be disturbing paint. So that misleads a lot of people into thinking, well, if I have a house built in 2000, then I must be fine. But the truth is it's not the paint inside the house that causes the problem for most children. It's the little bit of dust that comes from that deterioration of that paint. So if they live in an old home and the paint gets, broken down into little bits of dust as we bang into it or we open and close old doors and windows, it's easy for them to imagine that dust is generated. But what people often don't realize is it's generated in all our older buildings. So you might live in a newer home, but if you as a parent work in an older building, for instance, or if you collect antiques, or if you have things handed down through your family that have been in the family for generations, they could be painted with old lead paint and be sitting on the shelf in your, home built in 2006.
Right.
We had a young police sergeant at age 35 who died of lead poisoning. He lived in a newer home, but he spent a lot of time in an indoor firing range and breathed in all that lead dust, which presumably he also tracked into his house, and that poses a hazard for his children as well.
Oh my gosh. So what's the solution, Kate? Is there a solution to this?
Absolutely. EPA has a regulation that says if you are going to have any work done on your house built before 1978, you must hire a contractor who's got lead-safe certification. And there's a one-day class. It's an easy certification to get. Anybody, landlords, do-it-yourselfers, parents, contractors, could seek out this training. It's called RRP, Renovate, Repair, and Paint. And it tells people how to do it safely. So if you're living in an older home and doing your own renovation, even just scraping and painting a wall, you need to get this training. It's a class. It's easy to find. It's all over the country. It's national certification by EPA, and it's called RRP. But the other piece is, even if you live in a newer home, If you're concerned about this, there are very inexpensive testing devices that you can buy at Home Depot or on Amazon. I just did a TEDx talk. It hasn't even been released yet. The title of it is Why You Should Worry About Lead Poisoning in a New Home. And in that talk, it'll soon be available and people can see, I actually took regular household items on the TEDx stage with me and tested them in front of the audience with this little $3 device and showed how, this dish that came, this candy dish from Grandma's house has lead in it, or this rocking chair, the variety of things.
Yeah.
These devices are readily available all around the country.
So do we have to get rid of those things that have lead?
Good question. No, I don't believe that we do. I think the regulations are in place to worry, for us to worry about actual renovation. But if you have a collectible in your home, if you can keep it out of the reach of the children, just know which items they are. And we don't want to, the way people get poisoned is they eat or breathe these tiny, tiny, tiny bits of lead that flake off of painted surfaces. So we just don't want the children to handle them. In some cases, they might be able to coat them with a glaze or keep them in a glass shell, that sort of thing.
Kate, one of the things that the pediatrician was mentioning on this story about the Flint water and lead in general were the symptoms. Can you just share with us what some of those symptoms are for young children being exposed to lead?
Absolutely. So we worry about lead because it's a neurotoxin. It affects our brain. The lead travels in the blood and ends up in the brain, or they breathe it in and it goes directly to the brain. So it's brain damage are the symptoms that we worry about. Learning disabilities, ADHD. We see behavioral changes, hearing loss, speech impediments. There's actually very good research out there that shows if a child has an elevated blood lead level, they lose IQ points. If the children are under 6 and those brains are developing, we can actually correlate loss in IQ points with the amount of lead that the child is exposed to for long periods of time. So we would strongly recommend a blood test for every child at age 1 and age 2. And it's not usually automatic in your pediatrician's office. The parent has to advocate for this. They have to ask for this.
It's not automatic.
No. And one other piece, too, adults can get lead poisoned as well. So if you think that you as an adult are exposed to this lead dust, it's a great idea for adults to be tested as well. And adults also have symptoms a little different. We tend toward headaches, digestive problems. We have high blood pressure. In many cases, there's actually joint pain, things that look like it might be something else, like I have to have surgery on my knees. But when we bring lower the lead levels of adults, we often find that these symptoms disappear.
Tell me what we can do.
Really, 2 basic things. I guess I would say 3. Number 1, test your house. You can hire a lead inspector to do it, or you can do it yourself. EPA has recognized a little product called Lead Check. Again, readily available. You can buy them on Amazon, $2-3 a stick. They come in packages of 8.
God, if you have kids, this is a no-brainer, Kate.
Right. So
for anybody, really.
Kids, right? Yep.
Yeah,
test your house,
especially
test your
for
kids.
us collectible. I live with a lot of old things. I have an old. My brother's been dead for 27 years now. Oh my gosh, it's been a long time. And I have an old bowling pin of his that he carved his initials into. And and I know it's filled with lead paint.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a perfect example. And that chips.
Absolutely. Right.
Just being old and being in the corner of my, I use it as a door stopper, and it's getting a lot of wear and tear, and it chips.
Right. Absolutely. Old mixing bowls, statues, paint. My mom was a china painter. She painted beautiful tea sets and mugs and that sort of thing. We keep them up on the high shelf now.
Yeah.
I have a lot more information. I have written a book called A Parent's 5-Step Guide to Lead Poisoning, which has a lot more information, too, and folks can find that on Amazon as well.
Oh, yeah, this is really powerful stuff.
1 minute.
And give us the best website, please, again.
www.leadpaintclearandsimple.com. All one word, leadpaintclearandsimple.com.
Thank you so much, Kate, for all that you do, and we'll be back in just a moment. I'm Frankie Boyer. This is Biz Talk Radio. Stay tuned.